So for step 39, attaching the rear roll cage, you can see that we're going to add on this roll cage that goes across the top and then attaches to the chassis. Then we have this piece that goes from the top of the cockpit area basically and then down to the bottom of that back roll cage. So that's all got to go on, but we're going to do something first with this piece. If you notice in the back of the instructions, we keep going, we get to this. And this is if you want to attach a spare tire. Well, I do want to attach a spare tire. So I bought a spare set and I've already white lettered the tires. And if you want to know how I do that, there's a video on how I do that. I'm going to have to go over it again because my white marker is is almost empty, so I'm going to have to open another one. But I like the idea of having the wheel on the back. So we're going to do that first, and then coming back to the instructions back here, we will then install it on the chassis. Now you'll notice over here, you can put a transponder stay, which I'm not going to because I'm not going to be using that. But it showed that you need an MA3 and it says use that screw from metal parts bag E. So I've had to go to parts bag E for the MA3 because back on that instruction about the spare tire, it's that same screw. So I've got parts bag E there, I've got our roll cage bits here, and I've got all of the hardware that we need right there. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So going back to where we install the spare tire, the screws that they're showing you all come from bag E. So there's a couple of spares in there, and then there's this T4 piece, which is the bracket that's going to be used to hold the spare tire in place. Now, if we do this part first, there is our J piece, and you can see that in terms of the positioning, that's the back side, that's the top. You can see that T4 is going to sit over top of that, and then we're going to screw it in with the MA5 screw, which is the flathead screw, which you can see is going to nicely fit on the back there, nice and flush. So we need to screw that in place. Now just make sure that that is the correct, yes it is. So let's grab this piece right here. That's going to go that way. You can see that the top is that way. That is the bottom. That is the top. We're going to stick that on there. Might be easier to do it this way. There we go. Just make sure that that's going in straight. Yes, and we'll screw this all the way down. There we go, that's nice and firm. Just one more turn. Yeah. So there we go. There is our spare tire bracket in place. And then you can see with the spare tire is going to sit on top of there, and you can see it's actually a really nice fit because there is a raised area on the end bit designed to go into the center of the wheel. So we can use our, what was it, the MA3 screw. To now screw that down onto the roll cage. That's still a little loose, so I'll screw that in a bit more. Still a little loose. I just don't want to over tighten. Still a bit loose, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll screw it in a couple more turns here. There we go. So there is our tire in place, and I aligned it so that you can read it. So Rough Ride is going to be even on the back. But that really is super cool. I like that. Okay, so let's get back to the instruction 39 and finish this. So first off, you can see that we grab this part of the roll cage. It's got to be facing up, and we're going to grab our chassis, and you can see that those are going to go into this hole here on either side. So that's going to sit like this on either side of the roll cage, and we'll eventually be attaching it there. But for right now, they want you to attach that. Now, what I want to make sure of is if I get these cables out of the way from the motor, that's now out of the way altogether. That should be fine. I'm going to pull that away a little bit so that they're not getting caught. Yeah, that'll be. In fact, what I want to do is maybe pull these back a bit, and that way they're more out of the way of everything. Yeah, that's better. So let's get these on. So we know that we need to use the MC6 screws for this. So let's get one started. I'll hold it from back here. There we go. And again, just because I like to make sure that it's going on okay, I'm going to attach the other one on this side as well. Make sure that these cables and the motor wires are out of the way as well. Now, what I want to make sure of, which I can play with actually after the fact, so they'll be okay. So we will now attach these all the way. Okay, so that part of the roll cage is on. So now we move on to this next bit here, where you can see that the roll cage with our tire now is going to be fitting on top of this. And by the looks of it, we've got a couple of different brackets here. So let's see if, I think what we'll do is you can see that this is going to fit there, and then these two parts right here are fitting down on the bottom at the back, just like that. So let's see, those ones are the MB4s. They're the longer of the cap screws. So I'll pull those aside. MB4s, yes. And we'll actually start putting those in, I think. Except maybe not, because we need to get these fitted onto here while I can. So knowing that, we've got these MC7s. They are the smaller ones. So they've got to be attached first. Let's do that. And you know that these are in the right spot because if you see the other one, there is a raised notch basically, so that when that's sitting in there, that notch is attaching itself to here, so then all we have to do is screw it in. So knowing that, we'll continue with this side. There we go, that's on. And so now we'll do the same thing with the other side. Grab our longer one. I'm just going to check to make sure. Yes, that's still the MC7. Yes. So we'll screw that in place. There we go. So there's those two braces in place. And so again, knowing this, we're going to slide this through this MC6, which again are those longer of the flathead screws. They're going to go in through that top. So let's actually get that top part done. So we know that those two screws are going to go there. There we go. Perfect, I've got that started, so I'm going to turn this around. Let's get the other one in place just so that we've got them level. Now, I'm not going to lock it down quite yet because I want to make sure that everything else is fitting properly. So you can see here we've got our MB4s. They were the longer of the cap screws. They're going to go now down on the base of this, which is all going to then attach to the bottom of the roll cage as well. So if I turn this sideways maybe so you can see it more, we need to make sure that that's going into that bottom piece. Sweet. And then the same thing with the other side. Make sure that that's going into the hole. There we go. And there we go. So there is our rear roll cage in place with our spare tire, which I think just looks super, super cool. That's awesome. So when you look at this, they're not showing you attaching the bottom part yet. There must be something else that we have to do first. So before we move on, so I went around and tightened everything up. I've tightened all this up. I've checked everything. I've checked this, etc., etc. And as I mentioned a second ago, they don't show you attaching this to the frame here with any screw whatsoever. So I went ahead in the instructions to see where you do it, and there's no mention of it. But notice that in step 41, if you can take a closer look there, you can see that there is a screw there, which means they're showing that one was put on, but the instructions actually are not showing you putting a screw into this, which is weird. So I looked at the screw that we did for the top, which was an MC7. Well, it turns out in an old bag, there are two more MC7s that this is from like bag B or something like that. that are not being used, well, I'm going to use them, because what I'm seeing is that they don't bother to show you that you need to attach this piece here, and really it should be. So I'm going to use one of these BC7 screws that I found in another bag, and we're going to use it for here. Because when you go further into the instructions, it even looks like it's supposed to be a cap screw that attaches this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So you may find at this stage of these instructions that you'll have a couple of spare MC7 screws from previous steps, because quite often Tamiya kits come with extra screws. Well, this is where to use them, because I don't see anywhere in the instructions that you attach it anywhere, and now this is solid and firm. So I'm happy with that. So as a whole, once you've used those spare screws, now everything's solid. So this rack feels good. So that's very odd. So I'm not really sure, that it must be a misstep here where they forgot to show you that you need to screw this in. Because again, you can see there's a little image of a screw head there, which means it was screwed in. And if you go further into the instructions, and in fact, where was it? I saw it. I can't see it. I can't remember where I saw it now. Maybe it's further on here. There, yeah, if you look at the instructions there, it's showing that there's a screw there, and it definitely looks like a cap screw. So we're going to do that. So that means that step 39 is complete. So we're going to move on to step 40 and start working on the wheels.